What's up and welcome back to the What's Up podcast. It's great to have you guys back. I am here on a Wednesday night and I have another very special guest, the other half of the Run It Straight show on SENZ and the voice of rugby league on the radio, the man that hypes us up for all of our Warriors games, and you can't miss it. I want to welcome onto the show today. Producer extraordinaire, commentator, everything involved in and around rugby league and other sports as well. Sam Hewat, mate, thanks for coming onto the podcast, mate. How you going?
I'm good, man. It's my pleasure. The voice of rugby league. That's a lot of pressure.
Oh, I know.
Sorry,
I cheered you up a little bit there. No, very cool, man. Thanks for coming on, man. Hey, we'll get to know a bit about Sam. I'm sure you guys already know about this man anyway, but just for my own personal interest, I got some questions at the end of the show about Sam. But pretty much tonight, guys, we're going to run through the run sheeters, review the game against Canberra, look a little bit behind, the last 5 games. We're going to do the podium. The podium this week's going to be the best 3 players over the last 5 games, and then we'll get into some of the work that Sammy has done. Amazing interviews with Webby today, especially, and Cameron George. I think we just need to flesh out a bit more as fans and see what. Sammy was in the process of interviewing them both and kind of got the insights, and like to hear what he thinks from those interviews. We'll go into those, and then we'll talk a little bit about Sam's career in broadcasting and what the future may hold and that type of thing. So we'll get into it right now, guys. Here we go. Okay, guys, it was what a game and what a call. I was watching the highlights on YouTube on the SENZ channel there, and man, what a call, Sam! You mate, just beautiful. Summed it all up. The energy is just, mate, you've got it, man, and what an experience, mate. Look, 21-20 to the Warriors in the end. The finish was a bit tight, and we all kind of felt it, but that release of energy from the SJ drop kick and to do it the way that we did, I think bodes well as well going forward. Mate, what were your thoughts on the game? Obviously, you're there and calling it. What was your thoughts and takeaways from that one?
Yeah, it's. I've been trying to, I guess, sort of piece it together in my head over the weekend and over the last couple of days, because I think, obviously, initially, you're a bit worried we finished the way we did. Letting them score those 2 quick tries, 3 in the last sort of 12 minutes, but then those last 2 tries at the end to have us level and then go to Golden Point. But then the more I sort of think about it, the more I'm like, well, if you had said before the game, 2 top 4 teams, we're going to play, a 1-point game, it's going to go to Golden Point and the Warriors are going to win, then I'd take it, because both of those teams deserve to be where they were. And it was always going to be that type of game. It was always going to be a bit of a grind. It was always going to be tough. I think, if anything, when we jumped out to the 20-6 or 20-8 lead was probably a little bit flattering in terms of, of where the 2 teams are at. So the more I thought about it, the more I thought, we just needed to get those 2 points. The last real tough game before we hit this run home. And like you said, important for you to win a game like that, because you're going to find yourself in that situation in finals football. You're going to find yourself maybe behind or maybe chasing a team that's coming back. Overall happy in the end, despite, that sort of lapse of the last 5 or so minutes.
Yeah, I was thinking, I think it was a really good game to win in that fashion. I think you build a CV over the year, and I thought, there's checkpoints in your CV that you need to have. I think 3 in a row is a good one. Scoring, beating a team by 40 or plus points, and then a Golden Point victory. I do think, like you said, is a big part of that CV, because you're going to get in that situation. I suppose just reflecting on checkpoints over the last 5 games, what are some of the checkpoints do you think we've reached, or what's the progress that we've made that it's going to bode well for us moving forward into these last 5 games and then probably into the finals run?
Yeah, that's a really good point you make about the checklist throughout the season and ticking off some of those things, because I think you're right. I think if you're going to be a premiership contender, you go through those moments. You can't just win every single. If you're Penrith, even they can't just win every single game by 40 points and expect to lead to a grand final. I mean, you got to lose a game or two. You got to do it tough. You got to win in the rain, all that sort of jazz. So, I guess over the last 5 games, I'm not sure if that Rabbitohs game is in that last 5, but I still think that's one that is a bit sour in my mouth. Is the fact that we haven't been able to perform in those sorts of conditions against a good team. In terms of, I guess that's a negative on the checklist. So, but in terms of the positives, like, Webby's been talking a lot recently about that ruthlessness. I think that's probably what we lacked in the first part of the season. You could see that our defence was a lot better. You could see that on attack we had, potential, but we weren't scoring 30 points, or 40 points. The games we were winning were close. The games we were losing were close, but what I've been really impressed with over this last sort of month and a half is the ruthlessness of finishing a team off. We didn't see it against the Raiders, but by and large, the ability to shut a team out, not let them come back. I mean, the Sharks was another good example. You see what happened to Manly last week, where they get ahead, and then we know how the Sharks can get momentum and score 20 odd points very quickly. We didn't allow them to do that, which is a massive mark for us. So in terms of heading into the last 5 games and heading into finals, we need to know that we've got points in us, because I don't know if we've really chased a game down. I mean, we obviously chased that Sharks game down earlier in the season, but recently we haven't really, I guess, chased a game down. So, if we find ourselves behind by 10 or 14 points against a Brisbane, or Penrith, whoever it is, I think knowing that we have points in us is key. Because earlier in the season, I certainly thought, I was like, we've got this attack, we've got this potential, but where are the points coming from? And a lot of people have talked to, I think, about, the ability to score from anywhere at the moment. We can score through the middle, we score on the edges, we score from kicks, we score from, long range tries. That's a massive confidence booster, I think, for us. When you're looking at finals, teams you want to match up against, you want to know that you can score from anywhere if you have to. So those have been, a couple of my sort of keys over the last couple of weeks, I guess.
Yeah, that's cool, man. And I'm with you. It's just nice to see. I mean, what was the last 4 or 5 years we've been stuck on 16 points. You couldn't get past over 3 tries for a long period of time there. So it's refreshing to see 8 tries. It was like, and I know Webby was kind of like, it's not about the attack, but for us as fans, we're like, bro, we've been dying for 10 tries or whatever. We haven't seen that in such a long time. So I suppose the checkpoints for us as fans, because we got sick of seeing him.
Yeah. I was just going to say, the attack side of things is what makes it exciting, right? I mean, as much as you love defence, the attack is what's exciting the fans. And you talked obviously about the commentary. I mean, it's a lot easier to commentate when they're scoring points. It's easier to get up and excited about. So I feel you, man. I feel that that's what's getting a lot of people sort of hyped up, is the ability to score a decent amount of points. Yeah,
it is, and it's just such a nice feeling. But we're going to go into anyway some of the key players right now. Pretty much the gold, silver, and bronze over the last 5 games. We're going to look at the podium, and we'll go into that and talk with Sam about that. Okay, guys. The podium. Who for you, Sam, has been the gold medalist, I suppose, for the last 5 games from our playing group that you've seen really kind of, take us to that next level and progressing?
I mean, I could pick a handful. I think, look, you have to start. I think you have to start with Shawnee. Like, if you've got a guy who's up towards the top of the Dally M, and we know he is up there, then that's your best player. As much as I think Adam is having an amazing year, as much as I think Wade Egan is one of our most, he's not underrated, because I know a lot of people are really talking his praises, but he's underrated in the fact that he does a lot that doesn't get seen, that doesn't get appreciated. And I know you do a lot with your analysis of your videos. You highlight a lot of what he does from dummy half. So those guys are having fantastic seasons, but Shawnee just the way he is dictating, the attack, and just his kicks at the moment. I mean, his kicking game is just phenomenal. He's got good kick chase, which often makes a kick even better. But I think, you got a guy who's up towards the top, if not leading the Dally M. He's got to be the guy for me that sparked what we've seen over the last couple of months. So I give the gold medal to Shawnee, I think.
Yeah, and I've always kind of looked at Sean, and I'm not sure if you're the same, but he's kind of like the emotional, the blood of the team. If Shawnee's happy, I'm pretty much sure everyone else is probably happy. When Shawnee's not doing too well, and you can tell his energy, people feed off of his energy. I just noticed he's really kind of matured, and and I suppose in his personal life and stuff like that. You kind of see the similar thing with Sean, just a kind of a maturity, and obviously coming home. But I feel like he's grown as a person just as much as his football's settled and matured as well.
Yeah, spot on. And I think this has been talked about a bit over the ditch too. He's slowed down a little bit as a player, and not in a negative way, in a really controlled and mature is a good word. He's the ability to almost play in slow motion. Which I think only comes with age and experience, and it's what the likes of Cooper Cronk used to do. Where you almost see everything before it happens. I think that's how Shawnee is at the moment, and you're right. He's smiling. He's just, everything about him exudes this confidence, and I'm not going to say Shawnee is a confidence player, but it's certainly from the outside looking in, it seems like over the years he's sort of not died or live or died by it, but the confidence thing's been massive for him. When it's low, when a team's not tracking well, when he doesn't have full momentum, when he's in the media, when fans are scolding him, that's when Sean was sort of at his worst. Whereas he knows the fans are behind him now. Mount Smart rocks every time he gets the ball, and I think it just builds and builds, and he's better as a result. Sort of like that self-fulfilling prophecy. So that only comes, I think, with age. It only comes with moving back home, having everything right off the field. And it's sort of, I think back just a couple of weeks ago to the baby as well, and how the baby came, I think, on the Thursday, and Sean had arguably the best game of the year on the Sunday. I think that's a bit of a metaphor as well, for how, like you said, that off-field stuff is just contributing so much to what he's doing on the field.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. It's just beautiful. Sean, when he's on in terms of media and the content that the club produces, he's infectious, and fans just fall in love with him. I mean, kind of a man crush thing, but you kind of just he's a very likable guy and a very lovable kind of a person, and it's great to see, man. So yeah, totally with you on that, man. Silver, who have you got in your silver medalist over the last 5?
Well, I'll have to go back to one of those other guys. So I think you throw Adam in there. I mean, look, you can talk about the best props in the game, and the easiest comparison is sort of Payne Haas, who is out and out probably the best sort of pound for pound prop. But when you look at what Adam does, and I guess the way he moves his body for a guy of that size, and the fact that he's playing now 70 minutes, and just doesn't even look tired. It's just the punch through the middle it's giving us, the starch on defence. His offloads can be lethal. The little step off the foot, and something that I'm sure you pick up a lot when you're doing your videos as well. That I always notice with particularly props, but anyone in the forward pack, you cannot underestimate how much even one extra metre can do to put a side on the back foot. And that's what Adam does so well. He just gets that extra leg drive, extra metre or two, and all of a sudden the defence, rather than being set, is still backpedaling when the play the ball happens. And it's those sort of little things that Adam brings that I think make him so potent. So looking over these last 5 or 6 games, I just think he's been scoring tries, obviously, for fun, which is great from a prop. But aside of all those other things, I think he definitely deserves a very close second to Shawnee.
Yeah, no, I'm totally with you, man. His footwork is just insane. The footwork laid at the line, his passing and distribution. I said, man, this guy could probably play in the centres if we lost 3 guys to HIA or whatever, put Adam out in the centres. He'll do a job for you. Like I do believe he can. I think he's one of the best athletes in the club. But no, he's just a guy I didn't really know too much about, I suppose, before we got him. But just seeing him flourish, and even, I think that the biggest thing I noticed with him was there was that shot. I don't know if you saw it, but after we was going into Golden Point, you can just see the frustration on Adam's eyes. Like, man, I've been carrying you guys. You can see like he was really frustrated they didn't nail that period of, their last 2 or 3 minutes. But I love that. I was like, I love seeing guys that they're so passionate about wanting to perform at the highest level. And I think that senior leadership group, and Webby's probably talked about it, the buy-in. I think Adam's a big part of that too. You can just feed off of his energy, similar to SJ. Like, when Adam's upset and when he's happy, and I think it's just a really good balance they've got in that senior leadership group. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, he's not not emotional. It's not the right word, but he's not a vocal leader. Like Sean probably is. But like you just said, what you see from him, and that the frustration when things aren't going right, the sort of excitement and how pumped up he gets when he does do a big hit or score a try. Those sort of things are just as important, as someone who is yelling on the field. So it is awesome to see. I think he complements the rest of those senior guys fantastically well. And look, man, why not throw him in the centres and see what happens? Just for an experiment.
That would be gold, eh? Adding in the centres, mate. Look, hey, you never know with the HIAs. Things can happen. You never know. Okay, man. The bronze. Who have you got in the? If you can do a bronze, actually, and some honourable mentions as well, because I'm sure there's that third tier of guys that are they need to be acknowledged. I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'll go a little bit. I mean, a lot of people are going to probably put Tohu in there, so he's first honourable mention. I'll just pivot a little bit and go to Wade Egan, like I said, because I just think the games that we haven't had Wade this year are the games that we've either lost or we've not had the attacking structure that we see when we have him. So I mean, it doesn't matter if he's not scoring tries. It doesn't matter if he's not going through holes every second run or doing the Damien Cook thing from dummy half. The guy just does so many intangibles, and whether or not it's just the little head fake or the little extra step out of dummy half to drag a defence one way, even half a second, it's when you take all these minute actions into play, and so Wade Egan, Adam Whanua Blake. So Adam's quick footwork, getting the extra metre, all of a sudden the defence is still retreating when there's a play the ball. Then you get Egan's little head fake or little takeaway, pulls the defensive line slightly out. And all these things add up to the point where Marata Nyakora has a huge hole to run through, So I think Wade, despite not having statistically all the time amazing stats, I think he's such a big part. So I'm always going to have him somewhere on the sort of the podium. So I'll have him as the bronze medalist, but I give a big honourable mention to Tohu. I mean, I feel like I'm going to go through the whole 13 here. Like Chance, obviously, is just such a massive part of. It's such a massive part of what we've got going on. I think he ran for over 200 metres again on the weekend, and loves to score and meat pie, loves to set them up. Is always in the right position on defence, which as much as you love, or as much as we have that comparison to having Reece Walsh, I would much rather have Chance, because so many times when I watch the Broncos, I see Reece Walsh completely out of position when a team's attacking, and Chance just doesn't give that up. So, Chance is obviously up there. I think Jackson Ford is just a workhorse. The guy doesn't stop. Whether or not he's efficient sometimes, he doesn't stop, and I think that's a big thing. And then Mitch has been playing well. Dylan Walker's been the difference coming off the bench at times. Like I said, man, I'm going to go through the whole 17. So it's hard to pick.
Yeah, honourable mention to the whole 17. No, I'm totally with you. With Egan, he's just got a nice balance of when to go, when not to go, like a push-pull type of. You'll see these just spurts of running, quick passes or a delayed pass. Or every element. And I know Harry Grant is the kind of go-to hooker at this stage of the game. I think Harry Grant's games are very much power over, like a power game too. Like he can manipulate the ruck, but it's very much his size is the presence that you still have to be responsible for, because he can dive over the line. You know, he's that strong. Whereas I feel as though Egan has just the subtlety of every element, that he's just using every possible element, and he's getting line breaks as well without using his size. He's using deception, and so I really do agree with what you're saying there. And the only other mention I want to add in is Metcalf. I do think he's carried I think all the other foundation pieces are really important, like Walker and that. But I think Metcalf has added something to the team. His support plays what we needed. I remember that period with Walker in the halves. It was great defensively, but we're just missing an extra point of attack. And I just want to acknowledge him as well. But yeah, the whole squad, they're doing really well, man. But yeah, any more thoughts on that? You got any?
Just on Luke. I think he admitted too, we had him on last week, and he admitted that in those first couple of games, obviously he's trying to find his feet, in the squad in first grade for the Warriors, and then and very much just sort of running off Sean as a 2IC. But now he is really starting to get confidence in his own game and want to play his own style outside of Sean. And I mean that is I think a reason why we've gone to another level on attack. It's another option. Him and Sean as well are just on another level in terms of the chemistry and the relationship. That kick, last week where Luke was offside. I mean, I said it at the time. He didn't even need to be offside. You know what I mean? Like even if he was another step back, he still would have got there first. Just the synergy between them. It does remind me of those peak half combinations that we've seen in the NRL, where a 6 and a 7 are just so in sync that it's you can't really mark one without sacrificing the potency of the other. You look at the Cowboys and you got Chad Townsend and Tommy Dearden, and very much the focus defensively is on Tommy Dearden. I know Chad runs the cutter, but when Tommy gets the ball, you take notice. Whereas with us, it's like teams are getting scared no matter whether it's Sean or Luke, because both of them have just have the ability to break it open. So I think that's really exciting. I think it's a very honourable mention as well.
Yeah, cool. Well, guys, that wraps up the podium. We're going to go into a little bit now into some of the amazing interviews that Sam has done. I hope he doesn't mind I'm piggybacking off of his work, but it's just really, really good stuff that he's been able to do in the last couple of days. So, but yeah, we'll get into that right now. Okay, so let's get into this the Webby interview today. That was a beauty. It was great to hear him actually with a bit of time. I suppose Kempy not being there, it kind of just I felt we got more out of Webby, but like you said, still frustrating that he doesn't want to get into talking finals footy and those types of things. He's very. I respect the man that can hold to his values and morals and what he will say, but I'm sure behind closed doors or in his mind he's got a big plan. But I just wanted to talk about him, like I've been talking, and Kempy, he was on here last week, and he was talking about resting players or getting a rotation, freshening up the squad because of mental drain, physical drain, going into a finals thing. And I mean, we're all in agreement here that there's a finals run here, and you want to time it perfectly and get everything right. But his comments seemed as though he wanted more continuity. He wanted more from Tohu, or more from the guys that we see as kind of they need a bit of a break. Did you kind of agree with what he was saying, or I sort of started to buy into what he was saying? I feel as though he thinks there's another level to go here, or 2 or 3 levels. Are you on the same page as him, or do you kind of see it have a little bit of a break for some of these guys?
It's I mean, obviously I'm nowhere near an NRL sort of expert or coach, so you sort of trust how Webby's thinking, but I can see both sides. Like I definitely understand what he's saying in terms of this team, and he's right. This team has another level to go to. It is not perfect. We've seen that over a few games in the last couple of months. There's just a few things that you'd like to tweak. Which you can only do by having the squad that you want to do those tweaks with. So I get that, and I get continuity building to finals. And we also got to remember, this is a team that hasn't played finals in 5 years, but for a lot of them, they haven't played finals as a team at all. So in that regard, maybe Webby is wanting to give them as much, time in the saddle as he can. It's not like Penrith where Ivan knows exactly what his team's going to do, and he knows they know what they need to do and where they need to be at, so he can rest a whole bunch of them. I think Webby's sort of in that first year of figuring things out, and maybe that plays into it. But as much as he sold us on that dream, I do also think that he'll pivot if he has to. Like, if he notices the guys are really falling away with 2 or 3 games to go, or maybe Tohu really is coming to him and saying, Webby, mate, or the physio, look, Tohu's knees, it needs a break, whatever. I don't think Webby will sacrifice that just because he thinks he needs to have them all out there. You know what I mean? I think he'll concede that it may have to happen if guys do start to tire. But I mean, look, apart from Tohu, who sort of seems to be getting a little bit more rest, the rest of them seem fine. I mean, look, even Shawnee is he's hardly looking gassed throughout an 80-minute performance. I mean, Adam, I said, looks like he could play another 30. I know Webby said on the pod as well that Jackson Ford, if the game was 3 hours, he'd still be running as hard at the third hour. So maybe he knows more than us. So maybe they are fizzing and they just want to keep rolling on. But yeah, it was an interesting take for sure. I didn't expect that. I certainly expected him to sort of reveal a little bit of planning or just in case type stuff. But it was interesting.
Yeah, I suppose going off that as well is I think for us as fans, we want to preserve the finals moment and have a genuine shot here. And I suppose we're on the cautious side, but I think with his comments as well, how important do you think the top 4 is? Because it gives you that extra life. If you come to the first game, whatever, if you're top 4 and you get beat by one of those teams, then it gives you that extra kind of, because I don't really want to settle between top 4 and the 5th position or whatever it may be, because you want to get that extra life to know, okay, we were a little bit short here, okay, let's go refresh again that next week. Do you think we can kind of like live on the edge there and maybe, or do we really need that top 4 finish? What's your thoughts there?
Nah, I think the top 4 thing's really important. I have 2 sort of thoughts on it. The first thing is I prefer it more for the home advantage, whether it's week 1 or 2, because I think what Mount Smart's given the Warriors this year and the fans is it's exactly the I guess the key they may or will need if they come up against a team like Brisbane or Penrith. Whether, like I said, whether that's in week 1 or 2, it's almost a difference maker is having that Mount Smart crowd. So that almost to me is the most important part about having a top 4 spot, is the ability to have home advantage at some stage. But in terms of the lifeline, that also is important simply because, like I said, this team hasn't played finals football in 5 years, and a lot of them haven't played finals football at all, or for the Warriors. So you might need the extra week for them to wake up, you know what I mean? None of them have experienced that intent, or not none of them, but a lot of them haven't experienced that intensity of finals. And so in that regard, maybe you do want that extra game if you need it. And this is a total, like you were just saying before, it's the cautious fan mentality. I'm sure Webby, that doesn't even register in his thinking whatsoever. But yeah, from my point of view, I put it this way: if we play Brisbane in the first week, which is the way that I've sort of got it playing out, whether we finish second or third or other way around, I think we are the 2 teams that are just in behind Penrith. There is a chance that they come out and put 40 points on us, you know what I mean? Just because of the way they play, the emotion, if it's at Suncorp. And I think we would need to regather from that, and it may just give us a little bit of what we need. Whereas obviously you'd hate to be week 1, if we're in 5th position, you'd hate to be week 1 playing a team and going down by, 10 or 20, and that's it. So yeah, those are sort of the two reasons why I think the top 4 thing is really important. It is really important. If we finished 5th, or lower, I'd be really disappointed, which is so funny considering at the start of the season I was like, I'll be happy if we make the 8. Here I am saying if we don't make the 4, I'll be, I'll be unhappy.
Yeah, same. I think we've all kind of progressed in terms of not looking back. We've just each step we've we've closed the door behind us. We've forgotten about what's behind that door. I was thinking, 12th would be great, or 14th, but here we are, and looking for second or third. It's amazing, man. Look, I want to break. Coming into these last 5 games, I know you've said they're all winnable games. I've thought about it and thinking I wouldn't want to lose a home game. I think, like you said, getting a home semi-final, we haven't had it since 2008, really, if you think about it. Mm-hmm. But especially, I think, just solidifying that home crowd. Do you think we can afford to lose a home game? I'm thinking like the Sea Eagles might be a tricky one if Cherry Evans gets the win behind his back, 340-20s, things can happen. Or do you think, it doesn't really matter where we lose or who we lose to? It's just a matter of getting the points, that type of thing.
Yeah, I just sort of having a look through it now. So obviously, Sea Eagles and the Dragons at home, and then that Tigers game in Hamilton, which, I don't know, a quasi-home game. I think it'll be sold out. It'll probably be majority Warriors fans. A lot of people will take the trip down south from Auckland. So I honestly think, man, just with how the last couple of games have gone, I don't think we lose at home. I think the crowd and the momentum that the players have from that crowd, barring that Rabbitohs game, which, I feel like probably is going to get overanalyzed. I just don't see us losing those 2 home games. So I think also we beat the Dolphins in Brisbane in the final game, because I don't think they'll have a top 8 to play for. I'm a little bit worried about the Titans, just because we don't generally travel well, over there on the Gold Coast. They're a team that can definitely trip up the other teams, and I've always found with the Titans, not always, but in 2023, what I've found with them is, so many times they've put a big lead on a team, and, they've blown it, they've allowed the team to come back, they've given up the lead, etc. But you're sort of waiting for the moment they don't. And I feel like it could happen. They'll score 24 points, we'll put a bit of a comeback on, but they hold us off. So a little bit worried about it. But I said on the show today, I think there's nothing wrong with being confident about winning all 5 of these games, because we should on paper, right? They're all teams outside of the top 8. They're all teams we've beaten before, and we're sitting in 3rd position. So there's nothing wrong with feeling that confidence. I don't think it's overconfidence. I don't think it's arrogance or complacency. But I definitely think those 2 home games are not, I'm going to say locks because it is the NRL, but I'd be more confident that we win those 2 home games than that game against the Titans after the bye.
I got you, man. Yeah, that is a bit of a kind of a again, I think the likelihood of what could happen is that they get out to a big lead, and then we chase them down, or we get to a big lead and maybe they chase us down, that type of thing. But if it's not any of those situations, if we grind and halt them out, it's kind of back to what we're usually doing at the moment. I trust in the system, man. Like what Webby, like he even mentioned, I think everyone knows how we play, what the style works. And I mean, I get guys on my videos saying, man, don't give all the secrets away. I'm like, well, they've got their own analysis team, man. It's not just me doing this stuff. But
it's because you do such a good job.
And if anything, they can't stop it anyway. No. Well, I'm just thinking, well, they've got their own teams. Each team has an analysis team, but at the end of the day, they haven't been able to stop it. And I think it's just credit to Webby and Sean, everyone's involved, that they just got a good feel for what they're doing, and they believe. More importantly, they believe in everything that they do. So yeah, I'm totally with you, man. I just wanted to jump onto the Cameron George interview. I thought that was another spectacular interview. Really good insight, man. Credit to you and Staffy for that one. He talked a little bit about the squad, and it was good to hear him say it, because I was confused as to who signed with, who Webby brought with him and that type of thing. Sounds like the majority of the signings were through Cameron George, and I actually thought this is probably the best recruitment year in recent history from my eyes. I thought he did a really wonderful job, but at the same time, Webby has transformed those pieces to fit the system. But at the same time, I think Webby's kind of adapted his system to fit the players. I mean, it's not, people say we're very similar to Penrith, but in some ways we're not. We're very, I suppose, different in our own way. But who do you kind of credit, if you were to give a percentage, or just who do you think you can give credit to? I'd say mostly Webby, but still got to give a lot of credit to Cameron George, someone that's taken a lot of flack from the fan base over that COVID period, but has come out, just mate with a lot of respect from everyone. But yeah, what's your thoughts on that? I suppose the recruitment element and then the coaching element.
Yeah, gosh, it's complex. I feel like I could talk to you about this for hours. I think, I constantly try and work out if there's a really simple answer to this, and that's the fact that Webby's amazing, and it's just because of that. But then, I'll sort of backflip to actually no, there's a lot of stuff that's going on here, and let's be honest, man, people probably need to accept as well. A lot of luck, a lot of luck. Like the management at the club, with Cameron George and with Robbo, the owner, they're no different. This is no different to the management that hired Nathan Brown and the management that hired Stephen Kearney. You know what I mean? It's not like we swept the club with a whole new management and they brought in Webby and it's a masterstroke. Like, they've made some bad calls over the years and recruitment wise. And then they hit Webby and they've just struck a gold mine. So, I think luck plays a little bit of a part in it as well. And then, in terms of the signings, the same thing. I mean, yes, credit to Cam for going out and getting Marata and Mitch Barnett and Dylan Walker. But, man, how many of us, when those signings were made, were sort of like scratching our heads going, man, this looks like classic Warriors and some of these guys are washed and, why they're getting them. And so, I think, to your point, I think it's Webby that has unlocked these guys and unlocked all of them. I mean, he's unlocked Sean, he's unlocked Adam Pompey and big re-signing today. Unlocked Adam Pompey. He's now doing great work with obviously Rocco Berry, who has had question marks over him as well. Wade Egan, who 2 years ago myself and Kempy we're talking about, the Warriors aren't going to win a premiership with Wade Egan. You need a world-class hooker. Well, now I feel like he's one of the best hookers in the comp. So, in terms of the percentage thing, I'd give a lot to Webby for how he is, like you said, fit those guys into a system where he gets the best out of all of them and they all get the best out of each other. But I am going to give massive raps to Cam because I've always liked Cam and I've obviously dealt with him a lot over the years. I came down pretty hard on him at the end of the COVID period when he sort of came out saying, all of the last 2 or 3 years is because of COVID and being away from home. I was okay with the excuse, but I said, if that's your excuse, then next year, if it doesn't turn around, you need to fall on your sword because you've blamed COVID for the 3 years, and if you get exposed, then you need to fall on your sword. I was pretty hard on that, and so I give massive props to him, and I say, Cam, like I was wrong, and I still think you are a very loyal, passionate Warriors fan. I mean, you can see that when he talks about the club and talks about rugby league. So yeah, I've got to give him a massive round of applause. But in terms of, I guess, going back to the original question of where the credit really lies for what we're seeing in 2023, I think you have to give it to Webby with, and I guess you understand when he talks about, meeting with the players, one-on-one every single week and talking to them on a personal level and allowing them to sort of coach themselves just as much as he coaches them. It all shows you that he's very, very clever at working out how to get the best out of someone. And, he's got the best out of, a lot more than 17 players, but on a game week, he has got the best out of 17 guys all at once, all together, which is only a coach can do that, right? Only a coach can do that. So, I think Webby gets most of the credit. Cam, sorry if you're watching.
I don't think Cam is watching this one, but if he is, mate, hey, we still love you, brother. But I was thinking, man, Webby, shucks, imagine being in one of those that preseason. I think I could have done with a preseason just to freshen up my view of life, and because he said he didn't want to change anyone. He got everyone that he needed, and I think if guys coming into those buys like Newcourt and Walker, they were probably on the edge thinking, mate, am I safe here? And then within that preseason, those first couple of weeks, just to get that reassurance that you're a big, we need you, and all that type of thing. And I've heard interviews with Willie Army when I think Webby called him up in France or whatever. He says, "Hey man, how you doing?" And he goes, "Who's this?" "Oh, it's Webby." And he's like, Webby, yeah, I was your Parramatta Eels SG ball coach. It was like guys from he's finding guys from way back in 14, 15. But he's just got that about him, and I think we're all feeling it as fans, that infectiousness about Webby.
I don't know if it was Cam that told us this earlier in the week, or maybe I heard it somewhere else, but even before the preseason, like apparently one of the first things Webby did when he got the job, almost like first day, was ring every player and assure them that they are the exact player, they are the exact person he wants, they belong in this team. There wasn't a single player that he said to Cam or Cappy, he's not a part of the plan. He rang every single one and said, yep, this is perfect. The only piece he brought in, as Cam mentioned, was Tamati Martin, I think. Which, man, like you said, is just such a measure of confidence. Like, if you're a player and you're just getting that, and then, you talk to your teammates and be like, man, I got this call from Webby. He's like, yeah, bro, I got that call too. And all of a sudden you're like, man, this guy is so invested in us before he's even started. There's just, I, like you and like so many others, man, I just have the big man crush on the great man.
Yeah, no, I'm same with you, man. Yeah, I was going to talk about the four horsemen. I've called them the four. They've advanced now into the four horsemen. Robbo, Cameron, George, Cappy, and Webby. Just sort of I was thinking of the Trinity. What's the quint? Yes, but I just thought the four horsemen. I know that from the wrestling days with Ric Flair and that. But look, Cameron's kind of presented a plan. And I think he's high on Cappy, and Cappy talks to Webby every day, and the plans they're thinking for the future. Webby's mentioned it with you. I kind of feel that I'm confident that these guys can build something over the next 6 to 8 years. I know that's probably let's say 5 years at least. Now Gus has said that. He said on his podcast, and I think on his show, that the Panthers really they've got a 5-6 year window here, but they've built that development, and I think the Warriors are doing something similar that may not eventuate to 2025 or something like that. But do you feel confident that these four guys are the right guys to carry us through? I'm saying the next 5 to 10 years, something like that.
Oh, I mean, 100% they're the right guys. Yeah, no doubt in my mind. I guess the thing that I was wary of, and you might have picked it up in that Cam George interview, was, like I similarly tag on to the Gus Gould 5-year plan that he put in place with Penrith, which got pushed back a bit when they brought Ivan in. They sort of resetted, but overall it was this sort of 5 to 10 year plan of building your juniors, not letting them leave your club, and also pulling them into first grade alongside senior players. And at the time, they obviously had guys like James Maloney, etc., to sort of bring them through. And so I looked at it, this sort of 5-year plan, and thought, it's looking really good. They're bringing back the reserve grade team. They're going to have SG Ball and those guys next year. And alongside them, they're going to have like Sean and Tohu. But where I'm a little bit scared is that obviously this squad came together so much faster than everyone thought in terms of being competitive. Because you remember Penrith was sort of hovering outside of the 8 when Ivan first came in, and then they started making 8s, and they lost in the first or second round. It's a slow sort of build up towards the top. Whereas here we are in the top 4. There's even talk of us, finishing in second if we win these 5 games. It's pretty remarkable that happens within the space of a year. I don't think anyone can plan for that. What it does mean is that we've got this window here. I think this year and next year. With obviously Sean signed on for another year, Tohu's probably going to retire at the end of next year. You have a couple of guys that are also getting a bit older. So this window to get a premiership sort of now is open. And why not throw the kitchen sink at it, which Cam George said. The problem is then in 2025, you are almost starting again. Sean will be gone, Tohu will be gone. And as much as, Tamati Martin is class and Luke Metcalf's a great player, they're not Sean Johnson, right? They're not Sean, and no one's going to replace Tohu. And that is notwithstanding guys leaving, right? Like, who's to say we don't keep Luke Metcalf? He might want to sign somewhere else after the end of next year. There's going to be a couple of those forwards who might decide they want to go back to Australia. So you got to factor that into it. And so then you go, okay, well, as long as we've got the juniors there, then we'll be sweet. Well, the juniors will have only been in place for a year, next year, before 2025. So I think what we've got to be careful of as fans is we may get a bit of success this year and next year, whether that's premiership or, sort of finals football or top 4s or whatever, stuff to sort of keep us going. You've got to be prepared for 2025 maybe taking a step or two backwards, and that's when that 5-year plan starts. or restarts. And that's sort of, I guess, the bit that I'm a little bit worried about. I'm not saying the quality isn't there, and there are some awesome players to build that squad around in 2025. I just think, the highs of this year and next year may sort of come back down for a couple of years before we start to rise again. But to your point, I think 100% those four are the guys for the job. We just got to stay patient, I think, for a few more years.
I'm with you, man. Honestly, I'll probably stay patient because I'm just enjoying my footy right now, and I know next year's going to be even just a really good run too, like on paper. But I think you're right. If you take away Sean and AFB and a few of them, it does feel a little bit empty, hollow behind it. So I'm with you though. It will take a little bit of time, but I do believe in these guys just like you, man. I wanted to talk about Cameron George in terms of he was talking about pathways. I know you talked about the ARL and the Canterbury Rugby League and that type of thing. He mentioned that he's working something out with the NZRL. Do you think they're going to try and do something where they can, I suppose, get an SG Ball level or Harold Matts type competition going? And I've spoken to other guys, and I think there's $1 million investments. What do you think his plan is, or what is he trying to work out with the NZRL, do you think, at the moment, to get some more? I suppose you want to keep development pathways here in New Zealand, because it's going to cost you 5 teams to send to Sydney every week. It's going to cost you a lot.
Yeah, and the cost thing would be a factor for sure. I mean, I know Robbo is heavily invested in the club from like a philanthropic point of view. I mean, he's not someone who's looking to make money here. He's a Warriors tragic and a league nut. So, I mean, cost for him probably isn't too much of a problem. I think where Cam's coming from, and Kempy talks about this a lot, is simply the player drain. If you've got the Warriors who have, let's just say they've got 3 junior grade teams underneath New South Wales Cup, and their squads of, let's say, 20 to 30 guys. So you might be, let's just for argument's sake, say you've got 100 juniors in your program. Well, if there's 400 players playing league around New Zealand, 300 of them are going to get lost because they're not part of those squads, and they probably are getting offers from the Australian clubs. Of those 100 we sign, they might not even be the best 100, because of those other 300, there'll be guys in there that are getting poached earlier than the Warriors see them. So I think from Cam's point of view, it's more about, we've got so much talent here in New Zealand. We can see that with how many Kiwis are running around for some of the top teams and how strong the Kiwis are, but we don't have the ability to grow them locally in a competition that is competitive, because that doesn't exist. And so they're getting to, if they do get signed by the Warriors, like you said, they're going over and playing Australia, but if they're not in that team, they're lost to the game almost forever, or they're lost to another club. So I think that's his big priority, is trying to make sure that we're keeping the talent in New Zealand. There's certainly the numbers for it. It's just, as you mentioned there is a big investment that's needed to get it up and running. It'll probably, you'd want to get it to a point where it was, you get TV rights, broadcast rights, you want it in schools. But this is the time to do it, right? Like, you do it when the Warriors are doing well, when the country is shifting, from traditional, rugby and other codes to rugby league. And there's all of that groundswell. That's sort of the time to do it. So I think capitalising on that, I'm not saying it has to happen now, but certainly, over the next sort of 12, 24 months, you've got to, if you're going to do it, you sort of have to get it underway now. That's sort of how I see it. Whether that's possible, I'm sort of, I'm not too good at the administration stuff. I leave that to Kempy. But I think it's exciting if it did happen.
Yeah, no, totally, man. I hope it does. I really felt with Cameron and his voice, that he was genuine about creating pathways for rugby league players in New Zealand. Let's hope something can happen, and whatever that partnership is with the NZRL, and hopefully in the future the ARL and they can get on the same page. But let's hope that it can get done. I just wanted to cross over now to the recent signing of Pompey, a polarising figure amongst fan bases. You jump on a comment section about Pompey and you'll get every possible version of a comment on the guy. I personally have been really happy with him. I've loved his progress, especially his defensive work. I like he's a longer rangey type centre that has. He doesn't have the out and out speed that you want from your centres, but he works within small spaces. He distributes well, and mainly he shuts down opposition centres most of the time. But are you kind of happy with the re-signing of Pompey? And I suppose subtracting from that is our mate Reverse Judo, old Vilea, signing with the Cowboys. Do you kind of feel as though that was the right move for the club, or what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, obviously starting with Pompey, so you're bang on with him being very polarising. I find it really interesting with centres. I hark back to this point all the time. I think it's the hardest position in rugby league. So much goes through you on attack, so much responsibility comes to you on defence. You are the first person that gets singled out if a try gets scored on the edge, and you're the first person to get singled out if the ball doesn't, get through the hands quick enough on attack. It's you. And Pompey's sort of found himself in that position a number of times. It doesn't mean you're a bad player. It's just the nature of being a centre. So I think people are overly harsh on him. Like, of course he's got things to work on, but the guy's 24 years old and he's still, trying to, and he's been playing in a pretty poor team the last few years. I mean, you put sort of any centre in Penrith. I mean, look at Tyrone Peachey, for crying out loud. He looks like a superstar playing for Penrith. It's like you put someone in a good team and it changes them. So, I think Pompey deserves that spot. I think purely because of his development. And obviously Webby and Cappy are really impressed with how dedicated he is. And, he might battle to sort of hold that spot next year with Roger. And I think Ali Lautoa is sort of the future centre for us. So, he might sort of battle to fight to keep that spot, but that's a good thing. And then in terms of Vilea, I mean, because obviously we were looking at it going, one of these has to give. One of these guys, we can't have 6 centres or whatever it is on contract next year. But I think the problem with Villy is, extremely talented. I thought he was one of our best players last year as a rookie. Very exciting to watch. But from sort of what I've heard, and I can certainly sort of see it when I'm watching New South Wales Cup and see him defensively, just lacks the work ethic. And when you're talking about Webby and his system, that's almost the number one thing, isn't it? Is the work ethic and the motivation, determination. So that's just sort of stuff I've heard around the traps. It doesn't really surprise me when you do watch the games and you see, I guess, some of the defensives. And he might, we always say this, he might turn into a superstar at the Cowboys. That might be the key to unlocking him. And Todd Payton might just find the missing link. But I think, when I saw the news, I was pretty happy with it. And I think I could sit down with any anti-Pompey fan, and I reckon I could convince them, within an hour, maybe using a couple of your videos as well. I could convince them.
Oh man, that'd be great, man. Yeah, I've been trying to convince people for this whole year, and there's no budging on some of these guys, man. But that's awesome, man. Hey, that wraps up that segment. I just want to quickly go into a bit of Sam's career, and we'll just ask a few questions, and then we'll wrap it up from there. Okay, here we go. Okay, my man. Look, just wanted to ask a little bit about your pathway and how you got into radio. Did you start from a young age? Kind of, is there a university model to this type of thing, or is it kind of you know someone and then you talk to them and then you find the other person?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of luck, a lot of that sort of who type stuff that goes into it. Just right off the bat, one of my bits of advice for people who sort of look at it as a career, it's not hard to get into. Jeepers, just if you're passionate about, let's just say sports radio, but any type of radio, just go to your local station, come to SENZ and say, hey, look, I'm sports obsessed and I really want to work in radio. Do you have any work for me? We've always got work, but it's that foot in the door that then leads to stuff. It's like I said, it's not that hard. There's nothing special to it to sort of get into it. I guess for me, I was always obsessed with sports from a young age, and obsessed with wanting to be a commentator. I it's not a cliche. Well, it's a cliche, but not for everyone. of having something that you dream about when you're younger and then chasing it for your whole life. Like, I literally used to commentate, the local sports at the park. I used to pretend I was a horse commentator. I'd make up names of horses going around the track. I don't even like horse racing, by the way, but I did it. And I used to watch All Black games and imitate, Grant Nisbet and these guys. It's like, it just, it felt like it was part of my DNA. And then I remember getting to high school, and there was a teacher I had who sort of taught me through media studies, and I said to him, look, at that time I sort of had shifted into maybe wanting to be a journalist, and I said, look, I really want to do, media or sports journalism, whatever. And I was looking at going straight into broadcasting school or straight into journalism school, like in Wellington or in Auckland. And he said, look, the problem with a lot of sort of courses nowadays, like broadcasting school, and I don't mean to bag on broadcasting school or anyone who's done that, but they teach you how to stand in front of a camera, they teach you how to talk into a microphone, and that's basically it. A journalist, they sort of teach you, I guess, how to go after a story and questions and that sort of thing. My teacher said to me, you're much better going to uni and studying politics or history or music, whatever you want to do, to give you a more broader, not education, but a more broader skill set. And then you go and sort of do the media thing afterwards. So that's exactly what I did. I went and did history and politics at Auckland Uni. And, I recommend for anyone who is thinking about that sort of path, like a Bachelor of Arts, you learn very quickly how to, critique, how to critically analyse, how to construct arguments, how to, write big essays, do research. And to me, that was just the best foundation for then, after my BA, going and doing a postgrad in communications. And, not that I'm trying to toot my own trumpet here, but I felt like I was ahead of everyone else because, they were just learning, like I said, to put a pen to paper or to talk in front of a microphone, whereas I had already been taught to critically think and analyse and chase angles and all that sort of stuff. So, I sort of did the politics history, went and did a postgrad in communications. While I was at uni, I got an internship with I think One News, at just their online team. Then switched over to the Herald, and I was grinding. I was doing at times 11, 12-hour days. It was pretty crappy work, like just writing articles for online, copy and pasting and all that sort of jazz. But I felt like I was in it. I felt like I was doing the sports thing. And then just I guess quite lucky. I was writing articles at the time for the weekend sports show at the Herald, and the host at the time, which was another controversial figure, and Tony Veach, he would often run out and give me interviews or stories and say, can you whip this up, can you do this? And I always sort of did it with a smile on my face. And then when I was a local sports reporter for Stuff the following year, and I was sitting at my desk, it was terrible hours, and I was covering just the local baseball team and in Manuera or something, and I get this call from Tony being like, mate, my producer's just left, I want you to come and be my producer, and I immediately was like, yeah, 100%, no doubt in my mind, but a real scary proposition because I'd never done radio before in my life. I had obviously thought about it and sort of dreamed about it as a kid, but at the moment I was just this print journalist. That's what I was doing. I suddenly get thrust into radio having never done it. Not only that, but I'm producing, the biggest sports show in the country on News Talk ZB, and I'm producing arguably the biggest and probably most controversial figure in sports media. So it was a trial by fire for sure. I remember, I think it was my second or third week in, Colin Meads died. So that was like my third week on the job, and Colin Meads died, and I was like ringing guys. I was ringing guys during the show. Tony's telling me to ring these guys and get on. I was ringing like Sir Graham Henry, being like, mate, I don't know if you know Colin Meads has died, and he's like, no, I didn't. And I'm telling these people that this rugby legend had died. It was insane. So a real trial by fire. But man, I think I fell in love with radio so quickly. Just the pace of it, the malleability of it, the fact that every day it's just completely different, and it's exciting and it's fun and it's demanding. I love to sort of work hard and be a little bit stressed out. So yeah, I guess that's how I landed into radio. I don't know if you want me to keep going or if you want to interject, but that's how the radio thing.
No, it's good, man. It's really cool, brother. I'm loving hearing that story, and like, just, for kids out there, whatever field you're in, sticking it out and taking opportunities like that. You got to be ready to take those ones. Like Tony Veach calls you up and says, "Mate, I need a producer." Take them, man, and I just credit to you and a good example for other people in whatever field it is in life. Take those opportunities that come. I think another opportunity, I suppose, I'm not sure if you saw the career path for yourself with Kempe, but that's been a revelation. How did you find that kind of working with Kempe and kind of building what you're building right now? I think it's really awesome.
Yeah, it's funny. I feel like one of my, I guess, main personality traits or qualities is my ability to really connect with people and get the best out of them. Certainly sort of in a work capacity. And that's why I think as a producer, I tend to work really well with my hosts because I know what makes them tick and I know how, when to push them and when to pull them back and what I can say and what I can't say and all that sort of stuff. So, when it came to Kempe, it was like I had worked with him before at Radio Sport, but I hadn't had too much to do with him, and getting sort of together early on, I very, very quickly realised how Kempe operated, and I mean, I can't, I guess, put it into words sometimes, but he's a real funny guy. I mean, I love Kempe and I love his analysis, and I think he actually does a great job of it, and it annoys me at times that he gets belittled for that year period at the Warriors when he was the head coach. It's like his whole sort of image gets reduced to that one year where he will admit freely he was too young, and if he could go back he wouldn't take the job, and all the mistakes that he made, which I think is quite a measure of the man. But outside of that, he's a great analyst. He loves the club and he loves the game, and don't ever take his criticism or his critique for apathy. He loves this club. He wants to see it succeed just as much as we all do. And sometimes, he's a little bit harsh on them. But sometimes people do have to. We do need that voice, in the background. As harsh as it may be, it adds another element to the conversation. So I sort of quickly learnt, that I was going to get along very well with Kempe. Obviously, the banter we've got is great. We know we can give it to each other. And it's sort of funny. Even just a couple of weeks ago, we sort of had a bit of a man crush moment, and we were just like, bro, as much as I go hard on you, I love you, man, and I'm here for you, and like we had a bit of a moment. So it's all sort of well in love and war. But and the thing too that I love about Kempe, just I guess from a commentary point of view, but I guess you see that on Running It Straight as well, is that he knows that I sort of talk quickly and a lot of pace and a lot of thing, but when I stop, I expect him to pick it up straight away and fill it, and he knows, and I know that I need to give Kempe a bit of space because he is watching the game with an analytical eye and he does want to say stuff about what he's seeing, and so I know I have to give him space. And I think just learning that nice and quickly that of how each other operates on that level has helped us big time. There's no awkwardness. We have no problem with butting into one another or talking over the top of one another or giving each other a bit of stick, and I think that's what's made it work so well. Not to mention the fact that we're just both rugby league mad. It's you can put a sports commentator, because there's a lot of them out there who do a million different sports. You can put a sports commentator in that role, but it's just the fact that we're both obsessed with rugby league that I think brings the best out of both of us.
Yeah, I feel it, and you guys, I love watching Run It Straight. Whenever I get some time, I'll try and listen in, and then the commentary as well. It's just cool. You guys have really built a nice combo, and I suppose in parts of our lives, there's times when we're kind of really settled in what we're doing, or there may be a time where we're taking the next step. I suppose for yourself, do you feel kind of settled in radio, and you're in a kind of a good space, or do you want to take another leap into another part of broadcasting, maybe television, or what's kind of the next thing for you, or you kind of settled in what you're doing right now?
Mate, it's a $1 million question. Probably not $1 million, but it's a question that I battle with, because and it might be, I guess, revealing too much to people, but I guess the natural progression in radio is, you're a producer for X amount of years, and then eventually you turn into a host, and hosting is what you do. And SENZ's always tried to push me into that sort of host role, but I'm not sure I want to do that. I mean, I love co-hosting, like what I do with Kempi, and I love, if I'm on panels or, if there's 2 or 3 other hosts in the studio. But in terms of being an out-and-out host, I just don't feel, and maybe it's just a confidence thing that I don't feel like I'm good enough, but I just think I prefer being on the other side where I'm putting the show together and I'm planning it out and I'm, doing the production and all that sort of stuff. That sort of feels more my skill set. But like I said, maybe that's just a bit of lack of confidence. And I guess the TV thing is, I mean, I don't really have a desire to do any TV outside of commentary. But then once again, I sort of doubt myself. Like, a lot of people message me saying like, oh, we love your radio commentary, you should be doing the TV, and I'm just not sure it actually works on TV. Like I said, I'm high pace. I talk a lot. I generally call every play, which you don't do on TV. You don't need to call every play because everyone can see what's happening. And I also get very excited, and I just can't contain that. So, would that work on TV? Maybe not. So, if Sky came to me and said, hey, do you want to have a shot at the Warriors? And they said, look, but you can't get up out of your seat and get too animated. You've got to slow down. You've got to blah, blah, blah. I'd almost struggle with that and be like, guys, I don't know if I'm your guy, So definitely the aspiration is there. The aspiration is there for doing TV commentary and for like being a host, but how that looks is something I'm still sort of working out. And I I'm patient, man. Like I think broadcasting people, when they're in it, can get a little bit impatient and think they deserve everything now, and I've done my time. I mean, I'm 30 years old. I've been in media for maybe 7 years. I still feel fresh. I still feel like I've got tons to learn. I still soak everything up like a sponge, and a lot of TV commentators don't start TV until they're like mid 40s, 50s. So in that regard, I'm happy with still building what I'm doing now, and yeah, I guess working my way towards something like that in the future. But for now, pretty happy, man. I love calling the game with Kempi. I love calling it on SENZ. I think our audience is just unbelievable, so supportive, so enthusiastic, so passionate, and I love engaging with them. So I wouldn't sort of want to give that up, I don't think, not yet.
Mate, I know we all have aspirations and kind of times of where we do transition, but mate, I want to keep you there at SENZ right now, man, because the way you bring the energy and this run that we're having as a club, man, you're so vital, man. You and Kempi right now, man, I'm listening every moment I get, following every tweet, and but no, I really appreciate you coming on here, man. In fact, you kind of inspired me with my analysis to kind of up my game a little bit. As you can see now, I'm starting to add red circles and arrows to my videos, so I'm slowly trying to get there. But I do appreciate your support and especially for me just to have you on the podcast, man. And I hope we can do it again. Maybe come finals time or something like that where we can catch up and have a yarn. But thanks for coming on, brother. And I really do appreciate your time and effort for being here this evening. Yeah.
Nah, man, I have to give you a massive shout out. I know people watching this are already committed to you, but I just think you're one of the best sort of content guys around the Warriors at the moment. Those videos are, so fantastic for people that, are looking for a little bit more of that analytical side of rugby league. We don't get a lot of that, when we're watching the pre-game shows on Sky or the post-game shows, and obviously on radio we don't have that visual element to it. So I think what the work you're doing, man, is fantastic, and it's really engaging, and I love engaging with the Warriors content creators, because I all think you guys are just like us. We're all fans. We're all in this together. Everyone's doing cool stuff. It's different, and it's all supporting a great team that's playing really, really well. It's exciting. So anytime, man, anytime you want, you just sing out, and I'm there, and up the wires.
Up the wires, man. Thanks again, guys. Thanks again, Sam, and you know where to catch Sam on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. Run It Straight program. Open up your SENZ app or on the radio, and when the Warriors games are on, him and Kempi are there to call the games. But thanks again, mate. That wraps up our podcast, guys. Enjoy the bye week. I know it's long, and but take some time to reflect and refresh, and then we'll come back next week. I'll do the preview of the Titans and look to the next, the last run home. But thanks again, mate, and we'll catch you guys on the flip side. Up the wires. Peace.